All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to this remote meeting. My name is Danielle Lenarsikbis. I'm a planner with Gladkey Planning Associates, and I'll be your lead facilitator today. Welcome. Tonight is our third virtual meeting for the Markham Center Secondary Plan Update. The session is being recorded and live streamed on the city's YouTube channel, and the recording will be made available afterward on the Your Voice Markham website. We ask that you keep your camera turned off until the breakout session portion of the meeting, which will not be recorded. And to limit audio feedback and improve the sound quality for all participants, please keep your microphone muted unless called upon to speak. We recognize that in Markham, we walk upon the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples, including the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Huron-Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. We recognize their history, spirituality, culture, and stewardship of the land, and we are grateful to all Indigenous groups for their commitment to protect the land and its resources. We are committed to reconciliation, partnership, and enhanced understanding. As many of you know, we are updating the Markham Center Secondary Plan to develop a vision and development options for the future of Markham Center. 1 month ago, we held our first virtual meeting with more than 100 participants, and we heard from Mayor Scarpitti, Commissioner Prasad, and several councillors. We talked about what a secondary plan is and why we're updating the one here in Markham Center. And then 2 weeks ago, we had our second virtual meeting. We talked about Markham Center versus other downtowns like Toronto, Scarborough, and Vaughan, and the elements of what makes a great downtown. In both sessions, we held small group discussions in breakout rooms here on Zoom to get feedback from members of the community. You told us how you see a lot of opportunities and potential in Markham Center, and that right now the area feels disjointed and lacks cohesion. You said you want a Markham Center that feels connected. In the future, you'd like Markham Center to be diverse and lively and complete, a community that is inclusive, welcoming, vibrant, environmentally friendly, and human-scaled, with a mix of uses, local shops and restaurants, housing that is affordable, community facilities, and good transportation options. You also want a more walkable, pedestrian-friendly environment with connections to the Rouge River. You looked at the map of Markham Center and you told us how you see the large area divided into precincts or character areas, including one that's most appropriate for a distinct downtown core. Tonight, we're unpacking these ideas one step further. So as in our previous meetings, we'll have a brief presentation shortly, and then we'll turn it over to you again in small groups to hear your ideas for how to facilitate cohesion between these character areas and create a great neighborhood within each one. Our team for the secondary plan update is identified here on Zoom as co-hosts. We're also delighted to have the following councillors joining us this evening: Councillor Reid McAlpine, Councillor Issa Lee, Regional Councillor Joe Lee, and Regional Councillor Jim Jones. If I've missed any others, please do let us know in the chat. If you have any questions for us tonight, please submit them by sending a message through the Zoom chat to the participant that's labeled Ask a Question. And they just got a message in the chat right now. Due to time constraints, we'll post answers to any questions received onto Your Voice Markham after the session. And you can find the Q&A from our last sessions, as well as the recordings on there too. So I'll now invite my colleague, John Gladkey, to present. John is president of Gladkey Planning Associates, lead consultant on the Markham Center Secondary Plan Update. John, take it away.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to those who participated in the last two meetings. So what I'm going to do tonight, this is not moving. Oh, here we are. Okay, so what I'm going to do tonight is the focus of the meeting is what makes a great neighborhood in Markham Center. This is the third meeting, as Danielle said, and I'm the lead consultant with my colleagues at Gladkey Planning Associates, and we're working on this project with a number of other consultants on our team. DETA, Greenberg Consultants, Stantec, and Steer. All of us cover a range of disciplines, including, of course, planning, urban design, planning and urban design, municipal servicing, smart city, and transportation. So as I said, the focus of the meeting is to talk about what makes a great neighborhood. But before we get there, just a little review. Those of you who have seen this before, just bear with me for a couple of slides. This is the location of Markham Center within Markham. It's to the south, but it's north of Highway 407. It's very close to Highway 404. This slide shows the boundaries of Markham Center. So we go all the way over on the west side to York Tech Drive, up to Highway 7, goes a little bit north of Highway 7 where the Civic Center is and the Town Center Boulevard, and then past Warden. It doesn't include the historic part of Main Street, Unionville, but extends then over to Kennedy. It goes a little bit east of Kennedy down to the 407 and then along the 407. So it's a big area. It covers a lot of territory. I have a number of thoughts, a number of ideas, which I'd like to share with you, a number of topics which I'd like to explore to stimulate some of your thinking and maybe the discussion that follows in the breakout rooms. So the first thing I want to talk about is a variety of built form. And right now, Markham, as you know, does have a variety of built form. It's a dense place. It is the Markham Center. It is not like other neighborhoods in Markham. It's much denser. It's an intensification area. It's focused on rapid transit so that people from around Markham and other areas within the GTA can get here quite easily. But one of the things that you might think about as you're talking about what makes great neighborhoods is where density should be concentrated. Should it be spread out evenly across all of these areas? Should there be a focal point, perhaps, in one of these what we call precincts we're not now calling character areas? Or should we think about carefully about some areas where we've had a real concentration of height and density and perhaps in proposals, for example, in this area over here at Warden and Highway 7, which would put a severe strain on transportation system and perhaps even the municipal servicing system. So these are all thoughts which you might think about in your groups as you're talking about built form in the different types of built form. One of the themes that you'll notice is that the buildings are aligned with the streets. So there's often in this image here, there's a podium building and then there's a taller element on top, which is stepped back. Over here, we have a corner building, which also has a podium and a tower sitting stepped back. Here's another example of something similar at Town Center Boulevard and Highway 7. This building does not have a podium. It's an office building. And there are some mid-rise buildings and some taller elements. One of the things I think that we might explore in the breakout rooms is whether all taller buildings should have podiums and towers, or whether there's a possibility for some variety. There are buildings in other parts of the world that work quite well with forecourts or courtyards inside at the street level, providing a bit of relief and green space and a bit of variety to the built form. So mid-rise, high-rise, podium buildings, and the variety of built form, perhaps even courtyard buildings. Another thing I want to talk about, and that you might want to talk about as well, is the mix of uses. Any great neighborhood has to, in my mind, have, and I think all the other consultants on our team would agree, has to have a great mix of uses. And Markham does have a great mix of uses. which is
John is
hard
frozen.
from- Sorry,
John has been frozen.
the screen is frozen?
You were frozen, sir. The screen, and we didn't hear anything for
We didn't
a
hear
few
anything.
seconds.
Oh,
You can just-
sorry, okay.
Reset, Mrs. That'd be great.
Okay, so I'll start here again. So the idea of the mix of uses is very important to neighborhoods. It's the idea that we'd like to see is for the mix of uses to be integrated. Right now, they're somewhat isolated from each other, and that's because Markham is a work in progress. And so what we see here is York University. We've heard from the mayor in the first meeting that York University has
Lost you again.
Okay, can people hear me now?
Right now we can. Maybe if everybody turns off their video, maybe that'll increase the bandwidth, John.
Yeah, I've got myself plugged into the Ethernet, so it should work. Well, let's hope for the best as we move forward. Okay, so another element that's very important in having in neighborhoods is access to local services. And here we have a couple of images from Markham as well, a medical clinic, a playground, and of course, this is the Parkview Public School, which is in Unionville. And here we have a map. There's a few things here which we thought we should share with you. First of all, there's a school site that is going to happen Gordon and High at the southeast corner. There's a couple of proposed school sites, a public and a private school, just west of the train tracks. There's a number of parks that are proposed or built within Markham Center, and you see these in the dark green right now on this image. And then there's a trail system that's also proposed through the ravine that runs through Markham Center, the Rouge River Ravine. And so these are all planned improvements. And at the bottom of this diagram, you have the distance, the 15-minute walking distance, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. And you can superimpose that on this image to see how that works for having services. So this is all information for you as you go into your groups to talk about local services in the various neighborhoods. Diversity of tenure. Here we have an image of a recent announcement of a 264-unit affordable housing complex for seniors. It was made at the end of July at 4300 Highway 7. So affordable housing is an important component of a mix of tenure, not just condominiums, but also other types of tenure so different kinds of people, different groups of people can live in the area. Here's a map. I think those of you who were at the other meetings will remember us talking about provincial policy. And this is a map of major transit service areas. And a lot of, in the lighter shade, you'll see a lot of the Markham Center area is covered by these. And within these areas, we can, through our planning, have inclusionary zoning, where you can require the provision of a certain amount of affordable housing. And you might want to think about that in your groups. How much is a good amount? Is it 10, 20%, more than that, 25%? And Markham does have definitions of what affordable housing is in their official plan. I'm not going to get into them, but the concept of affordable housing is important here. And finally, I want to talk about the 15-minute neighborhood. It's a concept that's been popularized recently by Anne Hidalgo, who's the mayor of Paris. And it was based on some principles that were developed by a fellow called Carlos Moderno, who's a professor at the Sorbonne. And the thoughts he had was that a 15-minute neighborhood should have all the key elements that you need to live within close proximity. So living in dignity, housing, dignified housing, working in proper conditions, well-being, health, education, leisure, and access to provisions, and so groceries and other services. These are the 6 concepts that he had for a 15-minute neighborhood. And wouldn't it be great if we could find a way to provide that for Markham Center and for the neighborhoods within Markham Center? Here's some ideas around that. One of the key elements of a 15-minute neighborhood is to be able to access all of these elements by walking or cycling. And so we have some images, all of these from Markham Center, of cycling infrastructure, of some streetscape and public realm, green areas, and here's a cyclist on Highway 7. Here's an image from Port Credit. Now, many of you are familiar, of course, with the Unionville historic area, but here's a newer kind of development in Port Credit, which has inviting elements for people to come to a Main Street, stores and offices or residents above, lots of different kind of signage, awnings, and a lively street character. So again, a few things to think about as you go into your groups. Greenery is very important as well. And we've heard this over and over again. So greening the streets, getting mature trees up there and having people walk in on attractive streets and attractive pathways. So here are the Markham Center character areas. And as you talk about the 15-minute neighborhoods, there's a couple of things that you might also want to think about. One is this green ribbon that runs through the area. There are very few linkages across this area. Even if in the proposed trail system that we looked at, the trails ran the length of this area and not necessarily across the area. And so you might want to think about where and whether we should have trails that run across the area that connect some neighborhoods. The other barrier is this rail track here. And again, it's possible there are areas in Europe that have very generous passageways under rail tracks with various kinds of activities and make it very, very easy and inviting for people to get from one side to the other. A few things to think about as you move ahead into your neighborhoods, into your discussion groups. So here's a couple of questions that we'd like you to think about as you move into your discussion groups. The first one is, what are the ingredients of a great neighborhood in each of the character areas shown on the map? The last meeting, we talked about the big ideas for Markham Center. In this meeting, we'd like to work from the bottom up. What are the really key elements, as I've sort of explored in my presentation for great neighborhoods? And then the second question is, we heard you tell us that Markham Center needs to be better connected between the different character areas. What would make you prioritize walking and cycling in Markham Center? So I'm going to turn it over to Danielle at this point.
Thanks, John. I'd like to say I see Deputy Mayor Don Hamilton has joined us too. Welcome. And on behalf of the team, I do apologize for the sound issues. I suspect John's video froze because I had mine on as well, as did a few other folks, didn't follow my own instructions. So in a few moments, you'll be prompted by Zoom to join one of 4 breakout rooms led by a facilitator who will guide you through these questions and take note of your ideas and feedback. You're welcome to turn on your mics and video in these breakout rooms if you'd like. You'll be about 12 other people. These groups will not be recorded. At 8 o'clock, I'll send a 5-minute warning to wrap up your discussions and jot down what you'd like to report back to the full group. And then at around 8:05, we'll come back together in this main room, turn our mics and videos back off, start recording again, and then review the key points and themes submitted by the groups. So you should receive a prompt shortly. So we're just waiting for everybody to come back and join us here in this main room from their breakout rooms. If you could please turn your camera and microphones off as we begin recording this main session again. I think we're just waiting for 1 or 2 more breakout rooms to join us. You can please turn off your video and your microphones as we do our report back. We've got people coming back into this main room. Welcome back, everyone. So just a reminder to please turn your camera and microphones back off as we begin recording this main session. And so that way we don't have another frozen video again. So if you have that option on your computer, that'd be great. I think we're all coming back in now. Excellent. Okay. All right, so welcome back. So if you just joined now, so please ensure your camera and mic are turned off again. We are recording again in this main session. We're back on the live stream. We're going to share the key ideas from the questions that you examined in your small groups. Our first question corresponded to this map, and we asked about the ingredients of a great neighborhood in each of these character areas shown on the map. They were labeled one by one. So I'm going to briefly go through each area based on the summary that each group put together. Area 1, you talked about how there have been improvements along Highway 7, but they haven't drawn people or cyclists. There's real potential to ensure there's proper relationship to Highway 7 with future development. You said there's potential area to build a community center. You're missing kind of accessible commercial, so really could be built upon for better connectivity and kind of building upon the existing uses. One group suggested enhancing a park at the corner. In area 2, you talked about how it's a challenge to figure out, where the employment should go. The previous vision was for 40,000 jobs, and you talked about how, is 2A or 2B good candidates given their proximity to the 407, the existing land uses. So yeah, you talked about there's a lot of vacancies in these commercial units, but there are missing green spaces, parks, residential. Because this is further away, it's less connected to the downtown core area of Markham Center, so it's a bit far removed and it's more difficult to walk. Then moving on to area 3, you talked about how there's green space that's missing. There's potential to connect this neighborhood 3 to neighborhood 2 to improve a mix of uses and help it feel a little bit less disconnected. You talked about how there could be more childcare centers, more retail, commercial, and mix of uses. Then in area 4, you said how there's flexibility along Highway 7, and that's important to have that flexibility to allow buildings to evolve, and land use can assist with that. You suggested a linear park along the south side of Rouge Side Promenade and really improving the frontage along Highway 7 to create a great streetscape, and how neighborhood 4 can really connect to the 5th area and the 6th area. So having more transit options along Highway 7, having more diverse mix of uses can really help link these the downtown precincts or neighborhood areas together. In area 5, you said, this is a city center comparison. So there's no, or comparison to city center in Toronto, I think you were saying in this group, similar composition, but no parkland in Markham Center, whereas city center has canoe landing. So again, you said in this area, you need more public space for gathering. People are using surface parking for gathering. You suggested more electric charging stations here, providing more multi-use pathways to connect to the other green spaces. This is really kind of a 24-hour community. It's a core area for employment and residential. And then in area 6, you mentioned how, the York University campus coming here provides a lot of opportunity, will help with the well-being of the community. It can help retain Markham residents, not just younger students. There's a potential for large celebratory gathering space, really designing the GO station as a focal point and breathing life into this area. So a lot of your groups, it seems like you touched on the connectivity across the GO line and having amenities for those who use GO Transit, things like coffee shops, grocery, convenience stores, having dedicated transit routes and options. And then finally, in this area 7, I think not every group may have gotten to it, but talking about redeveloping with residential mixed use. So our next question asked, what would make you prioritize walking and cycling in Markham Center? And so in terms of cycling, you talked about bike infrastructure, having good bike parking, having maybe a bike share system, having separated protected bike lanes, really fostering this sense of safety and security. And yeah, more than one group talked about having bike share as an interesting way of promoting biking. In terms of walking, many of you said there needs to be some north-south connections. The GO stations kind of create connections in a convenient way for pedestrians. Paths and trails that are accessible and safe all year round, and ensuring, like bike lanes being separated, having sidewalks and pedestrian spaces separated from cars, really creating attractive and safe paths that lead to destinations. You talked about how Markham Center is currently kind of a harsh walking experience. So having rest areas, having adequate infrastructure for pedestrians, having more shade. One group suggested a smart traffic light system to detect pedestrians, really prioritizing pedestrians in the area, and providing opportunities for security and for lighting. Ultimately you said kind of traffic is bad and people would walk and cycle more if it was a viable option. So you've given us lots of great ideas and considerations here. So thank you again for taking time this evening to participate. If you've joined us in one of our previous 2 virtual meetings, thanks for your continued engagement. And together all of these comments are helping us build a vibrant Markham Center. This is the last in our series of virtual meetings we've held this summer to get your feedback on Markham Center, and we'll soon share a summary of these meetings on Your Voice Markham. And as I said before, the recordings are all online as well. We'll be holding a visioning workshop in September, and we'd love for you to participate. Stay tuned to the Your Markham Center page on Your Voice Markham for details on the date and how to register. We'll post this session's recording and any questions that we've received today. If you have any other thoughts, there are also opportunities to provide additional feedback on the website or through the email address listed on that website. And thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we hope to see you at our next virtual session. Take care.